Hello again, Ian Stuckey with Mastermind Games here, and this time painting a tactical squad from the Space Marines faction of the game Warhammer 40,000. So starting with Army Painter Ultramarine Blue. So again, I'm starting to phase out Reaper Master Series as certain colors become less reliable in production. But so far, the Army Painter line has worked well with the other paints I use. So as a decent substitute, and I'm starting off with a larger brush than usual, going for an Ultramarines paint scheme. You know what, just go for it. Go for it. Okay, so the tactical squad here is a troops choice, and is one of the workhorses. Comparing them to intercessors, the intercessors are much tougher. The tactical squad is more flexible in terms of war gear options. And it's cheaper too and can take better advantage of transports. The intercessors only have one, that repulsor tank. Which is a crazy amount of firepower on it, but anyway. Now I have a second tactical squad in my painting queue. And I was only going to do one of everything, but the other squad does have different equipment based on the Ultramarines computer animated movie that I've mentioned before, and this is going to get kind of awkward. Okay, just gonna roll with it. Gonna roll with it. This has slightly different consistency than the paints I'm used to using, so there's a bit of a learning curve for me here, but it's fine. Anyway, if you want to see that other tactical squad, let me know in the comments, but you'll have to hurry because I won't wait too long before I just go ahead and do it off camera. But this squad I've equipped with a Melta and a Melta gun and a rocket missile launcher, and the sergeant has a grav pistol and a chainsword. The kit itself is kind of a tease because it does have all the special weapons a tactical squad can take, but the only heavy option is the missile launcher, which, while it's flexible, I mean, sometimes if for nothing else in aesthetics, you'll want different gear. But if you get a Devastator squad, which I also have coming up in my queue, that basically has all the candy. All the heavy weapons, all the special weapons, or no, not the special weapons, I don't think, but all the heavy weapons, and a bunch of other melee weapons for the sergeant, like a lightning claw and a thunder hammer, which the tactical squad kit does not contain, yet its sergeant can use that gear. So even if you hate Devastators, I do recommend picking up at least one kit for parts, if nothing else. And this is just a quick rough to get the blue. I'll pick out the other colors later with more attention to detail, finer brush, but I can go more loose, for lack of a better word here. And this servo arm on the ammo pack will be picked out in different colors, so I don't care if I'm nicking it right this minute, but I'm not going to give it a full coat of blue either. Wires will be picked out in different color too. This Ultramarines movie I've mentioned, most Warhammer 40,000 fans lose it over it. At least the ones I've talked to, over one specific scene where an Imperial Fist's chaplain holds forth his Crocius Arcanum, screams, "Burn heretics," unleashing a wave of energy that seemingly freezes a squad of Chaos Space Marines in their tracks, which the Ultramarines with him mop up quickly. Lose it because this is either a psychic power, which chaplains don't have those, that's librarians, or it's something the Crocius itself is doing, which it can't do that in-game. But 8th edition of Warhammer 40,000, I think, actually provided a way that could explain that satisfactorily with the relics. In 8th edition now, you pick one relic, and some armies, like the Tau, call them by different names, but these are pieces of equipment that go above and beyond. So I think the most satisfactory explanation for this particular chaplain's weird Crocius Arcanum is that it's a relic that has a special ability. Even in some of the codexes, there are relics mentioned that are not actually usable or selectable in-game. And all the codexes, period, mention that named characters cannot take relics because they are already considered to possess one or more. And Warhammer 40,000 is a huge universe, and in any game we're only dealing with a small portion of the models. Kind of starting to read some of the books focusing on the Titans. And there are classes of Titans so big that if they made an actual model of them, and this is based largely off of artwork I've seen and other models, inset art or other things inset artwork for scale, that the largest Titans would have to be at least 10 feet tall and 8 feet wide to be in scale, which, good luck playing a game with something that big. Unless you happen to operate a forklift. And I mentioned this before, but one of the main reasons I chose Ultramarines, and for the longest time while I was thinking about collecting Space Marines before actually starting it, I was going to do a unique color scheme, make up my own chapter, but what got me back into Warhammer 40,000 after a long hiatus was Ruva Alphaboos's series, If the Emperor Had a Text-to-Speech Device, in which Ultramarines heroes Marnius Caligar and Cato Sicarius argue like some old married couple, which is hilarious. And on that note, you will see those two models soon. They're in my queue, they're on my shelf, waiting their turn just to be painted. So, yeah, that to look forward to. A Warhammer store in my area, to continue talking, and fell off the dead air while I do this, had its store birthday a few months ago, and I picked up the art of Warhammer 40,000, and I've got to say, comparing the old late 80s, early 90s art to the modern art for it, there is a huge difference. The older art is definitely more cartoony, and honestly would not have been out of place in a toy store aisle next to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and other less serious lines. And for anyone who would argue about how serious the Ninja Turtles cartoon in Twilight was supposed to be, I would say just watch a few episodes of this show from the third or fourth season on, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. There are episodes of that series where the characters break the fourth wall almost as often as Deadpool. Plenty of leftover parts with this kit. Yeah, the consistency of this Army Painter stuff is slightly different, but I have not been able to get the standard Ultramarine Blue in the Reaper Master Series anymore. It's frustrating, but this is going to be the second time I've had to switch paint brands, although at least this time I don't have to do it as suddenly. The last time was several years ago when Games Workshop Citadel Paints reformulated everything. Now the problem with that is they left about a 6-month gap between the time the old paints were announced as discontinued, at which point they already stopped production of them, and the new paints were available. Again, 6-month gap between the two. That's not good for business when you leave that much of a lapse in product availability. So everybody either bought up everything they could of the older formulas, or, like me, switched brands. And a lot of people, myself included, once we find something that works, we don't switch unless there's a very compelling reason to do so. A lot of people are like that. They have their favorite brands, they have their set habits and ways of doing things. But, again, not very good for business if you're going to leave a gap in merchandise availability. Especially not in a hobby like this where most of your customers are going to be constantly painting and working on stuff and are apt to run out of a consumable item. Another great aspect, actually, I know the tactical squads have it. I can't remember if the intercessor squads do this, is the ability to split your squad into 2 5-man tactical squads. That's actually much more useful than I give it credit for, because it means your opponent's going to have to target squad twice. In other words, a buddy of mine I've been teaching Warhammer to, who's likes using my Tau, wouldn't be able to shoot up a 10-man squad in one go and would have to basically have either 2 turns into shooting or 2 squads ganging up on it to get rid of it in a quick manner, as opposed to putting all of those shots into one. I've mentioned this before, but I'm focusing near future for Warhammer 40,000 on just maximizing the units I have before I start getting new ones. So there is going to be a significant gap between the time I finish up everything and start doing new stuff. But basically, I've got the stuff I need to maximize all my Space Marines units. I need to maximize a couple of Death Guard units, which are a tertiary priority. So it's going to be well before you see anything of them, period. And then several Orcs units I need to maximize, and really just a Tau unit of Crisis suits. But yeah. So this is kind of a heads up of where this channel's going with Warhammer. Again, I will be doing more, but there is going to be a gap. Well, another gap. There's already been one. Got a lot of Malifaux models and some War Machines models coming up before I tackle the last little bit of Warhammer 40,000 I've got. But for that I do have one Orcs model, and like I said, Sicarius, Calgar, some Devastators I mentioned, a few other little things. That. A while ago, GW announced that Orcs Codex was coming up finally, but hasn't been a word since. I'm assuming there's going to be some kind of announcement soon, maybe after Gen Con with some kind of a release date. Just kind of wondering what's going to have rules and what's going to get dropped. So far it seems these Army Painter brand needs less water, but I keep misjudging it. It's just going to be a learning curve. Switch over. Oh boy, I'm starting to talk in a circle. Maybe I need some more coffee or something. Looks like a slew of 40k games are coming out soon. There's that Adeptus Mechanicus one. Another real-time strategy one. I can't quite remember the name of it, but the advertising's all over YouTube right now. And then one I may consider trying to pick up if my computer can handle it, and that's Inquisitor Martyr, which looks like a Diablo-style 40k game. We'll just see what happens when it happens. But one thing I've noticed about the bolt weapons in media depictions is they've never really gotten it right. Bolt guns shoot a miniaturized rocket that explodes on impact. And it's consistently described in the books properly, but video games and this CGI movie consistently just treat it like a normal bullet, normal machine gun. Inquisitor Martyr, in some of the developers' blogs GW's post about, is supposed to fix that. By having its damage to the environments and enemies do a spherical, i.e. ball-shaped destruction radius. So we'll see how that works out. Even if I never pick up the game myself in the end, I'll probably at least catch a long play of it, which honestly is a good way to see old games that you may not be able to find or even afford on the case of uber expensive ones. Haven't done modern video games in a while, or haven't stayed current on video games in terms of buying stuff, but I do keep an eye on the industry in case there's anything that changes my mind. But overall, I prefer the hobby aspect of this style of game more. There's a lot to be said about playing face to face with another actual person instead of just going up against a computer or going online with someone who's got all the manners and human decency of a rabid badger. Just about there, but yeah. Still uncertain if this, well, doesn't matter if I think this brand of paint's better or worse than what I was using. It's kind of what I'm going to have to switch to, since what I have been using is starting to get unreliable, like I mentioned. Starting to talk in a circle again, which means I'm starting to run out of things to talk about, but I'm really trying to avoid dead air. Well, moving the topic back to this other tactical squad I've got coming up. That one I've based on the characters from this B-grade CGI 40K movie. So the officer there has a bolt pistol and thunder hammer, and their special weapon is a flamer, and their heavy weapon is a heavy bolter. What I'm going to do with tactical squads is get a total of 6, I think, and have every option, heavy and special option, used once. And with that's kind of what I'm going for with all the options here, is number of squads things, so I can use just about every option once. So I've already got 2 intercessor squads equipped with bolt rifles, which I've fleshed out the Dark Imperium models, box set models, with a regular general release kit, and I'll get 2 more of those, one for the auto bolt rifles, one for the stalker, and 3 or 4 scout squads, so I can do just pure squads with each option used once. And then I'm right now thinking about doing a total of 6 Devastator squads, just so I can do pure options all around on the heavy weapons, probably using tactical squads as fodder to finish fleshing them out, giving them the extra Space Marines to basically act as shields for the heavy guns. Alright, that's all. Got all the blue now, I just need to let that dry, and once it does, start picking out some of the other colors. Next, here it is, 09088 Stormy Gray. And of course I've lost the brush I need to, oh, here it is. You know, I'll actually do that the hilt of that knife in bronze. Ah, yes, his grenades. Let's not forget those. Excuse me. Yeah, I'm just feeling kind of funky again, feeling kind of down. It's been a rough week. Excuse me, I'm just... Okay, yeah, this guy's got a funky kind of respirator he's wearing, so I can just straight up be in blue. Don't know why I'm sniffling all of a sudden. I'm just going to say it is what it is, move on, and make sure I just get this done in a timely manner. So... don't think I thinned that out quite enough on the handle of his bolt pistol there. Oh, I'm getting so tired I can't remember the word handle. Maybe I need to take a nap. Let's go ahead and get the missile launcher here. So the missile launcher with the Devastator's kit is not completely identical. The Devastator's kit has an optional part that fits down the barrel here, which is an actual missile in flight. The Tactical Marine kit doesn't have that part. I consider that another oddity, considering that the, excuse me. Let's see, I don't want to do this. We'll do it this way. Considering that the missile launcher itself is the only heavy weapons option the kit comes with, like I mentioned earlier. Again, it's kind of a tease, in my opinion, to have all this stuff except, or to have, you know, just one of the options when they've got a whole buffet to pick from. I think GW might want to consider reevaluating the kit here and think about what options they include with it. But probably not. Or rather, they probably won't, though. Let's see, Sarge needs to get set aside because he's got special stuff I'm doing to him, including a different colored helmet. Let's see. Getting there just takes time, and this is, again, as I've said almost every video, a hobby that is not for impatient people. It's part of the reason I want to show the entire process start to finish, minus the drying times. And just 3 more Marines left. Did he have any grenades? No. Oh, he's got a knife. The scope here is one of many, many optional parts that can just glue onto any bolt gun here. So, one thing about Warhammer 40,000 in general is you're going to end up with a lot of spare parts. What you do with those is up to you. Me personally, I hang on to them for modding purposes or for terrain, but objectives markers, that kind of thing. That's me, though. I have no idea what this little knickknack is intended to be. I'm assuming some kind of Holy Imperial relic he carries. But it does look an awful lot like nunchucks. So maybe he's carrying a holy nunchaku. Need just a little more of that paint. Again, this is Stormy Gray 09088. Now the sergeant. So I've decided across all squads that include a sergeant, I'm doing each one differently. So, as in every sergeant will have different equipment, and while that may not be possible or practical in all factions in Space Marines, they have plenty of choices, a whole buffet to pick from, so it becomes much more practical to give each individual squad a unique sergeant. And actually, let's do this way. I'll do the gray on the wrapping there in the engine. Or what if this had actual paint in it? And then 09004 Fire Red. And this is going to be used to give him his nice, shiny sergeant's helmet. And carefully, since the gray is still wet, I'll get the housing here for the chainsword. Yeah, when I said early 40K art would be right at home in a toy store, it's not just a more abstract cartoony style on earlier art. It's also brighter, more vivid colors and some weird combinations on occasion, including artwork of Astra Militarum, i.e. Imperial Guard, that looks like a football team. And then I'm going to take, where is it? Golden Skin 09092. As well as works and even Space Marines that not only are colored brightly like the toys of the 80s and 90s, but also proportioned an awful lot like some of the more abstract toy lines like He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So, I think this is the right color. Oh well, I'll just roll with it and see what happens. Yeah. Tried to give these guys as much personality as possible, but I still wanted the majority of them to have the standard issue helmets. But this Marine in particular, I picture as having a real grudge and low tolerance for imperial politicians and bureaucrats. Seen too many good brothers fall in combat due to poor decisions made by politicians refusing resources or aid in times of need. And I'll go ahead and, where is it, 09143 Yellow Bone. Start on some purity seals. Whoa. And I cold cock my camera. Fun. Okay. Purity seals and skulls. So. Got a really cool idea for writing on this particular piece of parchment. We'll see if I can pull it off. Because when you're trying to write this small with a paintbrush, it's not easy. But it can be really cool if you can, pull it off. So let's see there. And then he's got one on his boot. Some of these seals were sculpted onto the models, others were separate pieces. This one here, for example, I glued on separately. On some of these it will interfere a bit with the iconography, but that's okay. As it says during one of the extras on this straight-to-video Space Marine movie, these guys are not mass-produced, they are handcrafted. I think I've mentioned this before, but I think it's inferred in the lore that everything in the Imperium of Man is handcrafted by countless millions of indentured servants working in the lightless depths of manufactorums. Replicating patterns of ancient technology they can't hope to understand. And then the banner portion of his flag. I don't know what I'm going to write here yet, but I'll think of something by the time I finish up. Yeah, that skull on top of his banner will be pure gold. Double check and make sure I didn't miss any other backpack mounted human remains. There's one right here. Though this may not be intended as an actual skull, though, I'm going to go ahead and do it in a bone color anyway. Now this is big enough it might be an actual skull. Again, it just takes patience and practice. Emphasis on practice. Last one. Okay, I need to let that dry for a bit before moving on. Okay, next color, 09002 Deep Red. So after the last take, I added a second layer to the bright red on the sergeant's helmet and chainsword, and then I picked out this sunburst icon on his shoulder in the red, decided that would be appropriate. Sometimes your decision is going to come at the last minute, so nothing wrong with that. And this color is pretty much going exclusively on purity seals. This deep red, red brick, blood red group is very nice for the classic red sealing wax. And he's got a couple of these on his belt. I should probably see if I can figure out a few actual words to put on the loincloth parchments. When I get to that step, instead of just the scribbles and dotted lines, I typically do for text and script, which it's tricky writing that tiny anyway, more so when you're using a paintbrush, which is flexible and not stiff. I suppose I could try using a needle. Something to consider. No, did him already. And sounds like the wind's coming up again. Okay. Next, let's go with 09197 Old Bronze. There isn't that much of this. Enough I do want it done. So I'm going to do the flat pole for his standard. Being careful to avoid the cloth I've already painted. And leaving the capital of it alone, which will be done in gold in a minute here. Let's see, that's all the bronze on him. Yeah. As I said, there's very little bronze here. I'm mostly concerning myself with certain decorations, like this cartridge hanging off his pauldron. Or the one hanging off his bolt gun. Go ahead and do these, whatever they are. I'm sure at one point, whatever this little bit is, it had rules, which a lot of support things did, but the 8th edition has stripped away a lot of the supplemental supportability stuff in favor of streamlining, which is fine, because when literally everything you could possibly put on a model has its own rules, that's where it can get a little overly complicated. Shield Brown 09161. Just going to get his mohawk here. Yep, Space Marine hairstyles, pretty much bald or short mohawks. He's got a knife. Whoop. I try to limit the number of supplemental extras I give an individual model, just so I don't overcomplicate it. And generally, I'll try to limit myself to just 1 or 2 ornamental pieces, and I realize I missed part of his bolt pistol. I'll have to touch that up. Just make sure he gets set aside for now. Go ahead and do his packs. Probably full of supplemental mission-specific equipment that would have absolutely no game effect whatsoever. And now 09050 antique gold. Whoop, that's a little oozy. Oh, and I missed a cartridge hanging off his pauldron. Now, got it fixed, so that's the important part. Start here with a capital on the standard. And I noticed another cartridge I missed. Oh boy. I see how this session's going. Get the pommel. It's a fun historical fact. The pommel of a sword is the counterweight to help balance it, and the word to pummel came from pommel, as medieval knights would use it to bludgeon their opponents in close quarters. Really trying to make certain I get everything before moving on this time. I've already missed enough stuff as is. But in terms of all the little knickknacks and extras, I think it actually, from a modeling perspective, works better that a lot of them don't have special rules anymore. Because it means you can customize how you want a little more without having to worry about the rules as much in terms of the whole WYSIWYG thing. What you see is what you get. Which technically isn't part part of the rules anymore, but it's still widely used and generally the standard for tournaments, from what I understand. I almost never get to go to gaming tournaments, actually, because of my scheduling. At the day job, I get 1 day a week, and that's it. If even then. Okay, and I'm forgetting to do the trim. Oh my, alright. Let's go ahead and... This is interesting. Somewhat different on the rocket launcher, or missile launcher. Though not all of these models have the raised trim on their pauldrons, but where it's present, I will be picking that out in gold. And with this pose, I wanted to have this particular Marine as if he was actively trying to stab someone. Okay. One of the more interesting things about the close combat, the generic close combat weapon mentioned in the rules, as every model possessing one, if they don't have a more specific melee weapon, is just the sheer number of forms it can take. And Ultramarines are often described as carrying gladiuses, which is a Roman-style short sword. I think that comes with the Ultramarines upgrade kit on GW's site. I just haven't had any interest in getting one yet at this point. Then again, my Space Marines are still in their infancy, so... Okay, I'm going to need more paint. And I'm forgetting to do some of the iconography on their bolt guns, actually, which I need to do that. Oh boy. Was hoping this would be a shorter segment, but it is what it is. The skulls on his grav pistol. Okay, the missile launcher is good. Let's see. Get the Aquila on. It's either Aquila, or Aguila. I'm not sure what the pronunciation GW wants to use is on that, actually. And it's starting to rain outside, okay. It's nothing. Take care of that little mistake. Almost done. It's a little thick. Once again, some of my friends who don't play Warhammer do have a point about how so many details, especially on the chests, get covered up by having bolt guns and other firearms in front of them. Sorry, my nose started acting up again as soon as I started recording. I don't know why this keeps happening, and honestly, I don't care. It is what it is. It's irritating, but... And I'm going to go ahead and I think do this entire pauldron in the gold. trying to make sure I don't miss anything at this point, as I'm so close to finishing up finally. I've already missed quite a bit as it is that I've had to touch up off camera or backtrack to. Alright, last one. I might pick out that jewel date tail on his pauldron here in a different color. And I think I'm going to go ahead and take the bronze again and just do the barrel of the melt-a-gun here. At least this part of it. And 09206 tarnished steel. I feel I have to enunciate that more. That's because of the difficulties I've been having saying that correctly, which don't know why. And the teeth, the chainsword. I'm going to pick up this cylinder on the graph pistol. And I think the barrel too, but there is going to be some lighting effects in it. Okay, I need to do this again and get the trim on the banner here. I forgot that. And get that skull on his helmet in silver because it'll stand out a little more. Of course, the blade on his knife. Gonna go ahead and get the moving parts of the servo arm on his backpack, which is a loading mechanism. think I need to touch up the blue around it a bit, though, but that's alright. A lot of Space Marine equipment doesn't have scabbards or holsters because it's magnetically locked to their armor. It's common of supplemental equipment like knives, grenades, etc. There's a reason I'm sitting aside the melt-a-gun equipped soldier. Okay. He's got a knife. Now 09005 Phoenix Red, which is not mixed up properly. Let's try that again. That's better. Just going to get the wires here. And I'll get this cable here that has the Imperial Aguila hanging off it. Okay. It's going to take Stormy Gray 09088 again. Quick dot. And get the part of the missile launcher equipped. Dang it. Marine's sidearm that I missed earlier. Just quick like that. I'm going to go ahead and take that Phoenix Red again and just do the bands on these missiles in the ammo pack here. Okay, let that dry, start shading in a bit. Alright, time to start shading. A little dazed right now. Go ahead and start with 09049 Ancient Bronze. Oh, got a little gold skulls on his graph pistol there. careful not to miss anything. Right now I am very worn out. And I can do one more before I have to let things dry, and that's 09001 red brick. Which is just going on purity seals. Ah! Where'd he go? Gravy. To quote the great philosopher Charlie Brown, and not for the first time today alone, good grief. Okay, I'm gonna need to let that dry before moving. Well, actually, let's see. Yep, I'm gonna need to let that dry for a bit before moving on. Alright, next up is 09205 Blackened Steel. Which is about shot, but I don't need a whole lot to do what I need to do here. Oh, it helps I got my light on. That skull in the center of his helmet. Like I said, there isn't a whole lot of this color. Still trying to be cautious to make sure I don't miss anything. Let's see, where is it? Woodstain Brown 09160. There's not a ton of this one either. Just a couple things here and there. Still gonna double check every model and make sure I don't miss anything though. Already brought that up once, and when I start talking in a circle like that, it means it's probably time for me to take a nap. I say that a lot when I'm tired, but rarely take naps. But again, it's just me being exhausted. that's all of that one. Aged Pewter 09196. This color's a little more prolific on them. And only assume the proliferation of cartridges hanging off their armor is based on the Marines thinking that it's good luck or something, or gives them the Emperor's favor. For some reason that brings to mind the holy hand grenade scene from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Take this, thy blessed hand grenade. Come to think of it, giving the Space Marines an actual holy hand grenade type weapon as, say, a tactic would be kind of hilarious and awesome. Alright, 09004 Fire Red. Got a couple of cables in need of a shade. By couple, I mean that in a more literal sense, since it's just two on the melt-a-gun. There. And on these rockets here, as well as the cables on the launcher itself. Gonna need to let this dry soon, but before I do, I can do one more. Stained Ivory 09142. Still not certain exactly what I'm going to put there, but I'll have it figured out by the time I finish. Now here I know exactly what I want to try to write on this parchment. We'll just see if I can pull it off when I hit that step. And there are so many skulls in this game, especially on Imperium models, it's a little tricky for me anyway to figure out what's supposed to be an actual skull and what's just supposed to be a skull decoration in some cases. I think it's dry enough. There's one more color I can do, and 09003 Blood Red. See if I can get the Sergeant's chain sword and helmet finished up now. Being careful around the skull decoration in the center. But this is a nice, just bright tomato red, which is also what you want to go with for blood angels or blood ravens. At least I think this is the color for blood ravens. I've not seen much on them outside of long plays of some of the Dawn of War games, so just kind of dabbing on around this honor mark on his shoulder here. I think I can go ahead and get the skin tone now as well, if I can find the bottle. Here it is, Golden Shadow 09091. And I don't need a whole lot, just a couple of heads. Just mohawk here. And Brother McStabs a lot here. Let's see here. Yeah, I think that just leaves two left for shading at this point. Okay, two shades left. Ultramarine Shadow 09187 is next. I'm gonna about half paint, half water. It's fairly worn out. It's been a long week. Let's make sure I'm in camera. shading goes more quickly than the base coat, but it's still going to take a while. I have thought about doing just a single model from squads like this instead of the whole squad, but still thinking if I want to go down that path or not. We'll just see. May not work for me personally, given that I tend to paint an entire squad at a time on games like this, but again, we'll just see. But I just have the ultramarine blue and then the dark gray. Then it's highlighting and detail. You know, the Army Painter Ultramarine's a bit different from the Reaper Master series. It does work well with the line and is very close in at least color. So I'm trying to make certain I don't miss anything. Getting there. Keep your brush very wet during this step. halfway there. Okay, I'm going to need more paint. This is a little tricky in here. It's alright. Well, that was trickier than I expected. 3 left. Two left. Getting there. Excuse me. And the sergeant. Uh-oh. There we go. Just being really careful around the Aguila. Not sure why I keep whispering so much, but... It's going to be particularly tricky. Real careful to make certain the paint goes in between the little spines on the sunburst, I guess is the closest I'm going to get to an actual word for that. And then here, I want to get the interior of the banner without hitting the gold or the ivory. Okay, that's got it. Let that dry. Then I've just got the gray to shade and some lighting effects in the eyes and on the grav pistol and on the missile launcher. Last shade, 09037 pure black. I'm using, sorry about the sniffing again, using a bit more water than typical. And this is going on all the gray. Being really careful not to hit anything else. If I sound funny, it's I'm not feeling well. It's as much psychological as it is physical. This is going to go a little quicker because there's not as much of this color on the models at this point. If you'll notice, I'm just kind of dabbing it on, just quickly, lightly brushing it in the areas. One of these days I'm going to find a better camera so I can show you this a little better. I think I have exactly enough paint to do what I need to do here. I'm making sure I didn't miss any other little knickknacks. Okay, last one. Okay. Once that's dry, I can get started on the lighting effects and then its highlights and other details. Okay, I can start on the lighting effects, 09039 pure white. This is always going to be your basis for a lighting effect. Getting eyes. I'll go ahead and do that step. Just dabbing it in. Naturally, you want a very fine brush for this. Keep it moist, not overly wet. Doing this before the highlight, so that the highlight can help cover up any mistakes. So you can see this is mostly going into eyes. But this can't be done any sooner because if I do this before shading, then the shade will cover this up. Then for the grav pistol, my hand is really getting twitchy right now, so this is more difficult than usual. I'm just putting this in that indentation in the barrel. Okay. Once that's dry, I can actually add the color for the light. Okay, let's see if I can get the lighting effects. I'm not feeling very well. Emerald green 09103. There's way more than I'm going to need. carefully dabbing it in the eyes onto that sensor, and then over the power cell, and this into these conduits on the graph pistol. And then 09101 ruby red. It got a lot of control over here. Yeah, this is how unreasonable Walmart bosses get. I am sick. I had to leave work early, but I at least went in and tried to get through my shift and got through half of it. And got told I have to get my exhaustion under control. They're the ones causing it with their ever-escalating demands. My direct supervisor takes a ton of time off, and I've already only taken off half the time she has from being sick, as well as less than half the vacation time she's taken. She's got the nerve to tell me I need to get my exhaustion under control, and I'm driving myself screaming yellow zonkers trying to meet their ever-escalating demands. That's lighting. When it dries and when I feel better, I'll get the highlighting and details done. Okay, time to start highlighting. 09089 Cloudy Gray. Or actually, I'm getting a little mixed up. I need to do some details first. Pure Black 09037. But, yeah. Went to a doctor, turns out I've got an ear infection, so fun. And I've got medicine, it'll get cleared up soon. I can still do this at least. So, actually, start with the pupils on these two here. Just carefully make sure I'm in camera first. Carefully dot those in. And again on the Marine, I'm going to call Brother McStabs a lot. Now, start doing some gun barrels here. So, just making sure to get the interior of the rocket. And fill out, just dotting it onto the dead center of the main barrel of the bolt guns here. And the melt-a-gun here. Alright. Now, get the right brush and take 09089 Cloudy Gray. And starting with a model that doesn't have this particular color drying. Doing this especially quick here. Just worrying about where it's most visible. And trying to work the lowest point on the model to the highest. Yeah, forgot his pipes on his head. That's even the technical word for what they are. Not sure at this point. Excuse me. Fortunately, this dry brushing will dry almost instantly. Not quite instantly, but almost. Quickly enough for purposes here. highlight 09093. And I'll go ahead and do 09005 Phoenix Red next. That's not mixed properly. Let's try that again. Better. And now Ultramarine highlight 09189. More likely than not, I'll need plenty of this. Again, I'm focusing on the most readily visible areas. I suppose I haven't really explained this technique too well, so pretty much no water, straight paint, and you're just rubbing it on a paper towel till it looks like there's almost nothing left. And then just kind of lightly dusting, and this will catch on the raised areas. Works especially well if you go against the grain, to use a woodworking term, as in going against raised edges so it catches. Move on. More than halfway done now, at least with this color. 2 left. Okay, that one's done. Let's clean and dry out thoroughly. Just switch the inside of the towel here and 09207 True Silver. It's not much of this. Just a bit on the grav pistol and the teeth here of the chainsword. And of course, whoop, I found the right color. A little skull ornament in the center of his helmet. Mostly knife blades. Ornamentation at this point. Then of course on the missile launcher equipped Marine with the servo arm to help load the launcher. Let's do 09051 new gold. There's not much of this, just a bit here and there. Pauldrons, the belt buckle here. Three left. And the sergeant. This is gonna take some touch-up work along here with all that blue that got onto the gold. All right. Gonna take a finer brush and carefully pick this out a little better. Give the capital a little that nice and shiny. Okay, it's got that. And now 09006 Fire Orange. I have some cables to do. There we go. This is running thin. I do have a spare on hand though. Oh, that fell right over. Getting there. 09198 Tarnished Brass. Whoa, nearly knocked over my water. Getting a little too enthusiastic. This one's mostly on some of the ornamentation. So getting the banner here, or at least the pole for it. And he has a cartridge hanging off his pauldron. Then the barrel of the melt-a-gun here. And another lucky bullet. Though more likely it's a bolter round, which is not technically a bullet, but a miniature rocket. That's just me getting a little specific. And then his, whatever that is, holy nunchucks. Can't think of what else to call these things. Don't have a clue what they're supposed to be. Well, I'm sure like a lot of the bits in this kit, they had rules in an earlier edition. No longer do. Nearly there. (09162) Driftwood Brown. There's not a whole lot of this. There are a handful of pouches. I'm gonna double check every model. Whoop. Help make sure I don't miss anything. And like a lot of Space Marine war gear, these pouches and all this, these little extras are likely held on magnetically. Now, (09144) Creamy Ivory. For parchment and skulls. Every Marine has at least a purity seal. And we'll see how it goes when I try to write on that parchment, but I know I've wanted to write there for months since I first bought the kit, and something just came to me. I think it's easily open to interpretation which skulls are actual human remains, and others which ones are actual just ornamental. Oh, and I missed his mohawk. Let's take a second to do that real quick. Yeah, that's gonna interfere too much. I just bit of driftwood brown and just light dusting. There we go. Clean, dry, and back into the ivory. Let's see, this one here's an example. I don't know if this could be a skull, possibly from a child, or just an ornament that looks like a skull. Again, they sure do like their skulls in Warhammer. And I just realized I missed another scroll here. Then just a quick touch up here with the blue. Okay, and that leaves what? Aside from me needing to flip this again. 09003 blood red. I don't need much of this, it's mostly going on the wax portions of purity seals. There's a part in that book series, The Beast Awakens, that depict how the Black Templars make their purity seals. Apparently, one of their officers will take a piece of parchment, write on it with his own blood, study it for the Emperor's guidance, and after determining something, tears it up into strips, and the brothers will then use wax seals to adhere it to their armor. Interesting. I doubt all the Space Marines do it exactly that way, especially since the Black Templars are kind of nuts, but it does give some insight into what these are for, and it's clear at this point that these are temporary decorations that are renewed before battle. Okay, that's all the highlights. Now I've got one set of details to start on, and I'm going to need 09039 pure white for it. And that's to start on squad markings. So getting a finer brush again. It's going to be a little abnormal. I'm going to fill in the center of this sunburst and the disc portion of this talking funny banner very carefully. Then the Ultramarine symbol will look a little funny, but we're going to get that on there too. Just kind of working around the purity seal on the sergeant's armor. Then as this is a battle line squad, so for that is a big arrow. Just takes practice to freehand. There are water slide decals that come with these kits for Ultramarines markings, but I've had really poor luck. If you'll look on my some of my first videos, I think the Inceptors, Primaris Inceptors, you'll see just how bad my luck with those wound up getting. Which is odd because I've never had that kind of luck with markings like that before. Freehanding these markings takes a ton of practice. So I'm not doing too badly considering I've only been doing Ultramarines for about a year, but I still have plenty of room for improvement. Keep your brush moist, but not overly wet. Just 4 left. So this arrow symbolizes a battle line squad. In other words, the guys that get into the thick of it. 3 remain. Helps to draw the outline first and then fill in. I think this is about the best arrow I've done so far. Two left. And the last one. Oh, this is going to get a little tricky, but I'm going to try anyway. Obviously won't see the entire marking here with that missile launcher in the way, but that at least gives the impression that he's got his squad markings there. And then this parchment on his shoulder will also partially obscure his ultra symbol, but again showing the impression that it is there. Okay, let that dry. I'll be taking pure black and other colors and doing some details. Right. Last little bit of details here, and I move on to basing. So I'm going to take Army Painter Ultramarine Blue. Let's shake this up a little more. I'm still working with the consistency on this. That should be enough for my purposes. Took a while to figure out what I was going to do on this banner, but I finally got it. And then 09003 Blood Red, just a bit. Spent a couple hours looking over art from various Warhammer books, try to kind of figure something out to do here. Where'd I put it? There it is. Now for 09037 Pure Black. Fair bit. So, in a particular order. This is going to be my first squad. So Roman numeral 1, or Gothic as they'd put it in Warhammer. carefully using just tiny, tiny dots just to give the impression of writing on these purity seals. Keeping the brush moist but not overly wet. You use one with a very, very fine tip for this. And on the banner here, Laphis, which is a Imperial Shrine world in the Ultima Segmentum. And then actually, yeah, I'm going to get all the writing details first, and then I'll worry about finishing up the bases. Oh, it would help if I carried out my intent by putting the Gothic numeral 1 on the pauldron. Again, is identical to a Roman numeral 1. And he doesn't have a space for that, that's okay. I'll be doing the full numeral on his. To those pouches in the way. Doing missile guy last. Because of what I want to put on him. Oh, and I did pick out that little light on his helmet, just because I last minute decision made between coats. Not going to worry about doing the whole squad number, just enough to give the impression that it's there. And trying to write the word Danark on his shoulder, but at least gives the impression of it. Danark being another world in the Imperium, in the Ultima Segmentum. Now the big one. Not too bad, trying to go rid of purgation. Not too bad given the brush I had. At least it looks like there's writing on it, so... Okay. Where's the brush I need? There it is. And switching it to a larger brush. Getting the edge of the base taken care of. And once I'm done with this, all I have to... Ah, nuts. Well, I got no grip today. Anyway, once this is taken care of, all I need to do is add the talus, the rock debris, and then seal it, and that's going to be it. I've decided I'm just going to go ahead and paint my other tactical squad, equipped with a flamer, heavy bolter, and a sergeant with a bolt pistol and thunder hammer, while this is uploading. So that'll be finished by the time this hits YouTube. And again, this last thing could be any color here. It's just to cover up, put a smooth coat around the base. Because like here, there's a little nick there. You just want a smooth color all the way around. If you want to give individual squad names or other writing, this is an excellent place to do it. But just about done. A little more paint. Not a lot, just a bit. Just got mixed stabs and the sergeant left. Okay, let that dry, move on to basing. Okay, time to do the basing. So white glue, any convenient container. And a generous amount of water. Where did I put my brush? That's not it. What do I do with the brush? Oh, there. No, that isn't it. Alright, I guess I'll just use this. You want to use a brush you can afford to lose, otherwise, because this will ruin it all the sooner. This might be too big for the job. Just kind of paint the solution of glue around the feet. Oh, and super glue won't do the job here. In fact, if you put super glue in water, it'll just make kind of funky little chunks. That could be good for depicting coral, but not really good for this kind of thing. And then just dip it in. And then using another brush that's dry, push the excess away from any areas you don't want the material. This is a mix of fine, coarse, and medium rock debris, also called talus. I'm trying to find a different brush here because that's not going to work. This should do. This one kind of got mangled in a resin spill, so it's still good for this though. This guy's the halfway point. I'm not doing this in any particular order, and I missed a spot. So get that little bit near his foot, and second dip. It's a little bit more right there. better. And just brushing off the excess around the edge with my fingers. But getting it off the model requires a more delicate touch with a brush here. I may switch to scenic basing for my Warhammer models at some point. And if I do that, though, I won't go back and redo all the models I've done previously. That's just something to think about for the future. Alright, 3 left, including Beaky here with the melt-a-gun. A bit thin in places. Just touch that up real quick with a little more solution. Another dip. Two left. Last one. A little gap right in the almost dead center there. Another one on the edge. But if you see that the solution is pushing away the material already on the base, that's why you need to wait for this to set a bit before moving on to the final step, which is sealing this material. Okay, and speaking of, now that just needs to set for a while, and then I can seal it and finish up. Alright, final step, a brush or gray-on adhesive. I use See It Cement. Sure, there's other products out there that'll do the trick. And move that out of the way. Eyedropper, and then just carefully drip it in around the base. You need to let the glue solution sit for a bit and at least partially cure. Otherwise, this step will push your materials around and create gaps. Now, this is going to be the last Warhammer 40,000 video for a bit. Got a bunch of War Machine and Malifaux models coming up next, but I do have a Dreadnought, a Primaris Captain with Power Fist, Chapter Master Marnius Calgar, as well as Captain Katos Icarius coming up soon. So, repeating myself, I think it's nap time. So, this is far from the last Warhammer video I will be doing. As I've said before, I'm going to be focusing on... I just made a gap, but I can fix it by pushing material around ever so slightly. Kind of like that. Anyway, my focus moving forward is going to be on maximizing the units I have already before moving on to new ones, which will mean maxing out some Devastators I have coming up, with basically making 2 Devastator squads with a second base kit and a Tactical Marines kit to flush it out later, as well as maxing out my Orcs and Orc Boys and Gretchens, and Burna Boys, and then hitting Tau, especially with the Crisis Suits. I don't know how long that's going to take, but I'll keep you informed on other videos that I finish up. And a little of this goes a long way. As long as it looks wet, you're in good shape. You'll just need to let this dry completely before varnishing. I myself generally use an anti-shine matte varnish, but if you wanted these shinier, then go for a gloss. I'm gonna dab off that a little bit with a paper towel there. Last one. Trying to get this material on the model and not on my thumbs. Just clean out your tools thoroughly. And that is it. A Space Marine Tactical Squad from Warhammer 40,000. And up next, back to War Machine. Until next time, I am Ian Stuckey with Mastermind Games, signing out.